putt from Anthony Barella. He ties the lead all square with Eagle McMahon through 13 holes. Likely be a drop-in for par, and he can close out his first ever major. Oh my goodness, Final, what just happened on 16?
Ladies and gentlemen, the 2023 European Open.
Hello and welcome back to Round 3 post-production coverage of the 2023 Finnish National Disc Golf Championships. We are here on moving day at Mukkula Disc Golf Park. This is Round 3 Back 9 MPO lead card action, brought to you by MDG Media. All of these players are looking to position themselves strongly for the final round and even push those lead card positions to prove their podium spots and their skills at a national scale. I am Connor Wood, and with me, Elias Luukkonen.
What is up, Connor? What is up, viewers? Let's take a look at what happened on the front nine. Two players from our card, Niklas, Anttila and Rasmus Saukkoriipi, absolutely destroying the front nine, going 6 under. That is a great start. Other players on our card, Teemu and Kristian, also shooting pretty okay 2 under front nines, but that is not exactly the hottest kind of score. And a lot of other players pushing their way into that third position. Niklas definitely has a bit of a cushion, but after that it's pretty tight. And moving on to some of the more difficult holes on the course on this back nine. Starting on 10. A long, very forehand friendly hole. Most people are going for a slight flex forehand here with an overstable distance driver. Some bigger forehand throwers even going for an overstable fairway. I believe Rasmus Saukkoriipi will probably do that. Very difficult hole to park, even with a great straight flexing forehand. You're likely to end up just outside or on the outer edge of circle 1.
We have Kristian up first, getting us started here, and a great shape to put himself into the circle. Very difficult hole to move rightwards enough on, and he has done just that to find himself with a very good look at the birdie to try and keep up with these guys who are storming ahead. Niklas getting a long turnover, will need to find some late ground play to the right. And he's found just a little bit. That will leave him with his long look at birdie.
Yeah, that's a nice shot, and I feel like Niklas so far has been throwing super good forehands. Almost every forehand that he has thrown has been precise and very good looking. Rasmus here, a very strong player on the forehand side of his own, going with a very overstable flat top Firebird, showing off some of that power he has, able to glide the disc all the way inside the circle there. Nice shot, and still leaving himself with that common edge of the circle look.
Yeah, very rare that players get as much rightwards movement as Kristian's line. We saw both Niklas and Rasmus with pretty great shots and still not as close to the pin as him. We see Teemu pushing the left side fairway, catching some branches that will negate all of the fade and rightwards movement of his flight. And he's left with an upshot now, simply playing for par. Although we touched on it, this stretch of 3 or 4 holes having really high par percentages. This one sitting at 73%. So taking a 3 is no problem here. Very elusive birdie. Teemu just pitches up.
Yeah, on this holes the scoring separation mostly being between birdies and pars. Talking about birdies, Niklas here trying to get one of his own. Not quite able to do that. His putting stroke is looking very smooth throughout this round. But so is Rasmus Saukkoriipi's. Let's see if Rasmus can get this birdie and a stroke on the leader.
He does find it translating. It's a very difficult 2 here. And a great round for him so far, really with an incredible pace, showing off his full skill set on both the tee and the green. Rasmus now separating himself from these guys, battling for 3rd, 4th, respectively. we have Kristian, his chance for the birdie to tie him with Teemu at 13 under, and there it is. A great delivery to the chains.
Yeah, as we're continuing this back nine, I feel like a common theme is gonna be that a lot of these birdies that these guys are trying to make, they're quite often not gonna happen inside the circle. There's a lot of, in this middle stretch of the course, there's a lot of holes where you have to make a good putt to get the birdie. And we have a lot of talented putters on the card. We have seen already a lot of good putts, but even on the upcoming holes, I expect we're gonna have a lot of chances for some of the longer putts from circle 2 or even further out.
Yeah, very common with these extremely tucked away greens and fairly wooded holes that 13 to 17 meter range is common from even a good throw off the tee. So they will be tested at all distances on the green, and players of these caliber excited to see how they contend with that. What do we have on hole 11, Elias?
Hole 11, talking about holes that are tucked away. This is, as far as the basket position, it's not that far tucked away. The line is a natural backhand anhyzer shot. You have to throw it pretty softly if you're throwing the backhand anhyzer. Get some flex back at the very end. Also, a lot of players just trying to throw a forehand hyzer through the gap. The fairway is gliding towards the right side the whole entire distance. So a forehand is really not a bad play. If you can just throw a forehand through the gap and hyzer right, you're almost always having a circle 2 look. But Kristian here, what a bad release there. He has hit the first tree, and that is going to be not an impossible par, but going to take a heroic effort to get to the green from there.
Oh, and Rasmus almost hitting that same tree, but just a few centimeters inside, and an amazing sort of late fighting flip up to not fade too far right. He finds himself on the green, continuing his strong performance, really trying his best to hunt down our leader, who you see here now, also playing the forehand. You mentioned it, Elias. He has had some amazing forehand shots throughout the tournament, and we have yet to see an errant forehand drive from him. Another incredible shot, leaving him effectively parked here on hole 11. A great development to Niklas's game that is a little bit understated, but we've seen it and mentioned it many times in this tournament where he's really showing off his skill sets on both sides.
And Teemu here, not hitting the first cup, gets through pretty well. And that's actually something that both Niklas and Rasmus also did. They kind of pushed too far off the fairway, but getting very fortunate breaks. And Kristian here, look at this jail. Just almost an impossible approach. And he has got it on the outer edge of circle 2. Gonna be a long downhill putt from there. Potential for some comebackers here. If you airball this putt, the disc quite often glides far beyond the basket, and even Teemu there with the soft run still gonna have a little work left to do.
Yeah, Teemu fortunate to have that look for birdie. For Kristian, this is for par, I think, incentivizing him more to really go for it, but able to control the pace of that very nicely and some roots to catch him from sliding there. Still just a manageable distance remaining for Teemu, slightly longer, and he's had some troubles on the green so far, throwing the disc great. Has been losing strokes on exactly putts like that. Circle 1 where he's coming out on the right side, oftentimes chains, sometimes just airballing it. But if he were to put together his Circle 1 putting stats, I think he could be potentially right up there with Niklas if he were to be connecting on a lot more of these Circle 1 putts.
That is just so tough to see from a fellow player and a fellow friend in the disc golf scene. And in these big situations, the putting misses kind of add up. When you have one miss, the next one is so much more difficult. You feel like you have a lot of eyes on you. Even though everybody is hoping for you to make those putts, you feel like it's just so much more difficult after a couple of misses. And Rasmus here for a great birdie after throwing, I believe, a Toro off the tee, showing off that forehand power going on this long downhill hole just with an approach disc.
Kristian here, what's left of his bogey, hitting first available, had still about 100 meters on his second shot through the trees, was able to give himself a very long look. Although not realistic to really expect anyone to make that putt, he secures a bogey, which, being honest, was almost best case scenario off the tee shot, so not too much damage done, and in fact Teemu as well with that bogey. This is Niklas for his birdie. No pars here taken by the lead card as both Rasmus and Niklas find the 2, Kristian and Teemu find the 4.
Yep, as the rich get richer. Even with that little bit of good fortunate punching through some of the trees. And good fortunate, sometimes very much in play on this hole 12. It's a split fairway, you have 2 gaps, you can either go for the inside hyzer, that I believe the drone is going to be flying through. That is the less common line, and the more common line being the outside hyzer, that brings into play a lot of those small trees at the end of the fairway. There's a couple of tiny trees that are right in the middle of that outside hyzer gap. Still most of the players going for that. If you hit it clean, you're almost always inside of circle 2, but the rest is kind of down to luck. You just need to hit a nice gap at the end. Rasmus here with the Firebird.
And playing the inside gap had a lot of height and a steep hyzer angle. Didn't look too pleased, although he did hit the initial gap. We'll see how close he was able to get. Niklas really playing between the 2, still looking like he hit the backside of the inside gap, and he is right up there outside bullseye as he continues to push forwards and set that champion level pace, really solidifying why he is our leader and reigning defending champion. Kristian now.
First 2 players not quite choosing their gap, kind of going in between. And Kristian here going way inside, but gets a very fortunate break to punch through all of the left side woods. And he's even gonna have a chance for the birdie after a release that looked like it was almost a guaranteed bogey.
Interesting as all 4 players are playing quite inside compared to previous rounds. Whether intentional or not, interesting to note, and Teemu has put himself right as we see here with a chance from just outside the circle. And a beautiful putt. Center chains, those baskets having very dense chains right in the middle by the pole, as you can see, and he crashes into them. A slamming confident putt here on hole 12 to give him his first birdie on the back 9.
Well done there from Teemu, and Kristian here also with a nice putt. Smooth stroke. Everything about his game is very smooth. Never looking like he's putting too much effort into his throws, whether it's putting or driving. And I feel like that's also a common theme amongst the players on our card. Very effortless. Also from Rasmus and Niklas. And talking about Rasmus and Niklas, they're both gonna tap in their birdies. Rasmus going to 9 under. And what's notable about that is that 9 under was the hot score in round 2, shot by Niklas. So Rasmus has a chance to chase that course record on this special layout created by Pasi Koivu for this Finnish Nationals tournament.
Incredible stat there, and Niklas finding 2 in a row now, sitting at 8 under for the round. Rasmus able to separate on hole 10 there in terms of scoring for this round.
HARIBO Click Mix. Monta hyvää pikkukarkkia, lakua, hedelmää ja rakeita. Mä tykkään niistä toukista. Näistä pehmeistä ja syöistä. Mä tykkään niistä kaikista. Niin mäkin. HARIBO Click Mix.
And hole 13 here. This is going to be the last hole of this more wooded stretch of the course, but it's a long one, 151 meters. You have this pretty small gap about halfway down the fairway, which you have to hit. Most players are throwing a straight fairway driver or a straight distance driver. You can kind of play with the stability, either go with more hyzer or flatter release. Just the important thing is to go through that gap and then finish left. Very difficult hole to park. Once again, we see a lot of circle 2 looks or even further out. And the green is just the most challenging on the course. Not a lot of people even running it from circle 2.
And Rasmus with the ability here to go with the large spike hyzer, although you see not getting it straight enough before the fade, is catching the early left side of that late tunnel entrance to the green. We saw a lot of the best shots connecting with the ground at about 125 or 130 meters up the fairway, and then getting the soft ground play down the hill for the remaining 25 or so meters. Niklas with a slightly errant shot, also fading very early to the inside. You really need to push the width to the right and fly straight before fading left. We saw both Niklas and Rasmus struggle with that early fade on the backhand. This looks like a good adjustment from Kristian.
Yeah, what a nice line here. Just needs to fade. And look at this shot. He's skipped from inside the circle, and I believe that is going to be on the edge of the circle. One of the closest drives you can even see on this hole. As I said, very difficult to park, and you can just see why that ground play coming into play in a big way. And Teemu also with a nice looking line, but just a little bit high there, catching the last guardian tree on the left. We're gonna have some tricky approaches from both Niklas and Teemu, and Kristian has a big chance to get some strokes.
Really amazing shot from Kristian there to shape the fairway. It's such a difficult and late moving shape that nearly impossible to park it, especially on this fast green. We see the upshot there from, I believe, Rasmus, and that's significantly shorter than you'd want to be considering it's a putt for par. Teemu blind over the crest of the hill with some great aim and able to dig it in. That should be more manageable.
And here...
this is Rasmus's upshot, rather.
Yeah, the earlier one being Niklas's approach. And talking about Niklas from circle 2, most players not even running this putt, but Niklas making a great one in the middle. Wow, that's a huge confidence boost. If he had missed that putt, that would have been most likely rolling towards the outer edge of circle 1.
Man, what a scary, scary player to try and beat. Setting the champion pace, Rasmus as well, with a really confident putting stroke. It's incredibly difficult to catch up to a player who not only has a lead, but even when he makes mistakes, is able to save his par with putts like that. Able to save and mitigate the damage from his errors. Incredible there. Kristian with the look at birdie off an incredible drive. Just a bit low, will also be taking par here on 13. Teemu for his 3 now. And he scoops one around the cage. Lower left side, but enough to have it stick.
What a turn of events not to have Kristian taking any strokes on anybody on the card, even with a couple of pretty disappointing drives. But that was just a great showcase of putting confidence from both Niklas and Rasmus, and Teemu also with a good putt there. Nice to see him making that one after a difficult putting round. But now we're moving to the last stretch on the course. The most open holes and arguably the most bogey potential holes on the course. Hole 14 here, 239 meter long par 4. With the OB line on the left mostly coming into play on the drive, need to throw something straight with a good finish, find yourself in the middle of the fairway. Hopefully don't skip too far left for that OB. And from the perfect drive it suits really well for a big forehand hyzer. But once again you have to worry about that OB both on the left and also on the right side of the basket.
Pushing that backside tree line does not complete the full fade, although within the fairway. We'll be left with a lot of distance, though. And Niklas with a surprising misrelease there. Just Anheuser out of the hand and finds OB to the right. Gives a chance for our other players to potentially try and take a stroke on him now. Kristian with a nice adjustment there. Unlikely to push any left side OB while maintaining the angle integrity of the hyzer. And that's a pretty solid placement, exactly where you want to be to open up the forehand approach.
Yep, very nice shot, and Kristian is right next to that 100-meter sign. So it's about 100 meters to the basket from there. And Teemu here also pushing the right side, which is ideal to avoid the OB on the left. That is also a good position to be, although he has a lot of distance left to the green. And you already touched on it a little bit about Niklas possibly losing some strokes. But really everybody on the card has an opportunity to get even 2 strokes on Niklas, as he will have to play for the bogey from here.
Yeah, having gone OB so early on, there's no realistic play to get to the green and try and save par. Rasmus with a booming forehand, way up the fairway, finding the late fade, has arrived just at circle's edge. And a great display of his power there on hyzer. Still a little bit short, but very well shaped and very safe. Teemu as well, pushing this one wide and curling up at a very similar spot to Rasmus. Both of those approaches quite solid, and putting straight towards the basket rather from the left side may slightly reduce the danger on OB of a missed putt, although it's pretty close up there. Kristian up now with the best drive off the tee, less distance to the green, and just as he looks to be firing on in, one of those final trees blocking the way, that tree line really doing its work this hole.
Yeah, possibly might end up being a good break for Kristian, because he was moving towards the right side OB with a lot of pace. Niklas here, also inside, needs to not skip, which he does not. That is very well done, and Niklas is going to have just a short putt for a bogey on this one. And Kristian here, from outside the circle. Look at that line, what a smooth putt. And he's shooting a pretty decent back 9, even with 1 bogey going 2 under.
Incredible, and Rasmus as well. Both of those men from outside the circle making it look like easy work. Rasmus 4 down through 5 on this back 9 is really putting together an absolute heater of a round. Sitting at 19 under as the woes for Teemu continue. He's really throwing the disc well and giving himself so many chances, as he's now at a similar distance to his first putt, if not longer. And he chains out the left side. As you mentioned, Elias, difficult to see, but he's played a great tournament so far and still very much in play for a strong finish. Niklas securing the bogey, pretty much best case scenario off the tee shot, and very rare that you see him make those sorts of mistakes, so it's what's got him that lead, and that allows him to have some flexibility to make a few mistakes and retain first place so far.
Yeah, retaining first place, but at the same time losing 2 strokes to both Rasmus and Kristian. And we're moving on to another hole that has potential for some good stroke swings, as does every hole that we have remaining. It's a long par 5, although for being a par 5 it's not particularly long. Off the first shot you're trying to cut off most of this distance, trying to get 100, 110, even 120 meters to find your way near the edge of the wood line. Hopefully punch your way through the woods on your second shot, and then you're left with a very short approach for your third shot, but a very tricky one. There's really not a lot of gaps, and especially not a lot of wide gaps. But Rasmus here going for a bit of a flip up, and this looks huge.
Oh, he has crushed that one into the late gap, and that will really open up his angle for the forehand on the second, pushing the distance I think Kristian also looking to get one out there. And you see a much more traditional looking line with less flip up. That's a even good position to be, whereas Rasmus's would be considered potentially great. That is an absolutely fine shot to position yourself for birdie from Kristian. And Niklas as well, right about in that common landing zone for these upper distance players.
Yeah, just showing off how big Rasmus's drive was. He might even have a straight look at the basket, potentially going for the Eagle 3, which would be just a huge score to take in this situation. And Teemu there with a good drive, he's setting up well for that scrambly forehand through the woods on the second.
We'll have Niklas up first. Bit of a poke and pray situation here. You want to pick your gap and try to hit it. Niklas has done just that and gotten to the mouth of the second tunnel there. He will have an approach shot and a fairly straight look, although you see just how wooded that is. Kristian as well now to try and fight through these dense trees.
Yeah, pretty aggressive shot here, going with a high-speed distance driver. And he has punched through pretty well on the left side of the fairway, and he's going to have another very scrambly shot from there. And Teemu here, also a nice angle. He's right at that 50-meter stake, so not a long approach for anybody. And I'm interested to see what Rasmus has here. Looks like he has the backhand.
Oh, but slightly high and to the right. That's an incredible spot to be off the first shot. Surprised to still even see him go backhand over forehand. Of course, competent both ways, but... Oh, Teemu with a healthy bid at that. Really wanting it, and I think knowing that he needs the strokes, although the punishment that he will accept from that is he is in that small bush with a lot of distance left. Unsure if he really wanted to put that one in or just trying to fight the uphill distance remaining. And Niklas with another slightly misreleased disc, as we'll see him left with a lot of distance still to get to the green.
Rasmus here almost running it in with the forehand. Great showcase of touch there. And looks like Rasmus has a chance to pick up one more stroke on Niklas, as Niklas has to just pitch up for par there. Kristian with a good kick staying inside the circle there.
Niklas going high and hyzer, but finding another obstacle on his path to the putting green. Look at this stance, an incredible difficult putt now left for his par. And he gives it a chance, but turns his back well before it hits the ground. He was aware that was not going in. As he will be taking a bogey, there's a chance for a two-stroke swing here for our leader. And some of these other players still hunting the birdie. Teemu with a chance there for his 4, but left now with a putt for 5. Kristian here. Also, uncharacteristically slow-looking putt there from the hand. Very soft. Rasmus finding the 4 here. Putting himself at 20 under. As this gap between Rasmus and Niklas, what started off as a huge lead, is dwindling over these last 2 holes. A 4-stroke swing collectively throughout 14 and 15. Now only 3 strokes difference between Niklas and Rasmus, who is really putting on the heat.
European Disc Golf Championships 2023. The most important disc golf event of the year is taking place in Estonia in the Tallinn Song Festival grounds from the 16th to the 20th of August. Get your tickets from eurodiscgolf.eu, our sponsors helping to fly the discs.
Wow, we had some exciting action there, and hole 16 sets up for some very exciting action as well. It's a long par 4 once again, lined with OB. You're just trying to throw a big hyzer off the tee, get yourself in bounds. You don't need huge distance off the tee to set yourself up for a nice forehand hyzer approach to this green. That is no surprises here, surrounded by OB as well on the long right and short side. Another good hole to see some distance difference between these players, with Rasmus going for a huge hyzer here.
Yeah, that is incredibly wide and really trusting the overstability of his disc, but perhaps a little bit too much as he does not make it back in bounds. An unfortunate moment for him to do so just as he was beginning to apply pressure for that solo lead position that Niklas is holding. And he has gone out of bounds very early. We'll still have a lot of distance left. Kristian here pumping his hyzer out. Also some great distance on that one and considerably safer, although even pushing towards the left side OB. These guys really trying to push the distance while ensuring that they are safe. It can get a little bit slippery at times.
And Teemu there, nice drive. Niklas here, this is going to be a big moment because Rasmus, let's face it, he does not have a chance for a par. He went out so early, he has about 180 meters left to the basket. And so here with a good shot, Niklas can already put himself into position to gain potentially even 2 strokes on Rasmus, which he does very well. And this is just a play for the fairway from Rasmus. He's going for a Firebird sidearm, just trying to get inbounds here.
Yeah, and he's done that. I'm surprised to see some of these guys. I mean, obviously they were playing a pretty much one angle shot, but especially Rasmus really trying to push the distance off the tee, going super far and wide. We see an upshot there from Teemu. Sneak behind that tree. Unclear if he is safe or not, but you really don't need too much distance off the tee. You can throw just a big hyzer and then be left with about 90 or 100 meters for these guys' power on the hyzer. Niklas, Anttila, almost putting it in for 2. Will have a stress-free 3, and once again lengthening his lead over Rasmus. What a plot twist here as we really saw the momentum swinging towards Saukkoriipi. Anttila regaining that solid composure and a great shot from Kristian as well.
Yeah, Niklas getting some of those strokes right back. Rasmus here just trying to get up and down for the bogey, which already is a pretty disappointing score. And he's going to be inside the circle there. He's been putting very well throughout the round, so should be no problem. And we're going to have a 2-stroke swing between Niklas and Rasmus here, putting that lead back to 5, assuming that Rasmus makes this one, which he does not. Wow, what a surprising moment here. And he still has some distance left. That is going to be a nervy putt now after that miss. But Teemu here first for the birdie.
Very nice. An awkward stance there behind the tree with the low ceiling. Really solid to get enough pop on that. And very confident. This is Rasmus here on his comebacker. Able to secure that. And you touched on that rare miss from him on the previous putt. It can be very difficult to isolate the putt from the context in such a high-stakes situation. I think he was aware of the 2-stroke swing that has now developed to a 3-stroke swing, just like that, with Niklas finding his 3 and Rasmus taking the 6. Once again, 3 of those 4 strokes that Rasmus had gotten on him in the previous 2 holes negated here on 16. We see the separation of the course going down the stretch, testing our players until the very end.
And hole 17 here, once again, great hole for some stroke swings. There's this OB on the right side corner, so if your forehand fades at all too early, you're likely ending up OB. And talking about forehand, forehand is the best shot for this hole. Most players are either going for a flat forehand or even turning it over slightly towards the left with an overstable disc, trying to fade back right after the corner and hopefully take a bit of a skip to the right. This is another one of these holes that is very difficult to park off the tee, but with a good shot you're most likely somewhere around circle's edge or just inside.
We see from Kristian that flat release, a soft touch of turn. I think that this hole shapes very nicely for a driver that has good understability at the high speeds, but an incredible overstability at the low speeds. Some drivers tending to have a slow turn, some drivers tending to turn and fade quite a lot more. And I think that latter of the two really shaping nicely. We see Teemu going for a full hyzer angle, but misreleased. Does find OB right. And that's going to be a difficult spot for him. Par pretty much out of play there. Niklas as well shaping a similar line to Kristian. Good forwards pushing flight before the late overstability as he beats that corner by a hair. He has put himself to about circle's edge, putting for birdie. And a great bounce back on that last hole after 2 bogeys. Niklas looking to erase them here with another birdie chance.
Rasmus here, once again showing the forehand distance with going... And by going with an overstable fairway driver rather than a distance driver, but you can see that slower speed not quite producing the big right finish and the skip. And he's gonna have the longest birdie putt of the 3 players that are putting for birdie. And Teemu here just trying to get up and down for the bogey. It looks like he's done that pretty well.
Rasmus with a smile on his face. It's good to see. All things in context, still sitting in what we believe to be second place. Niklas Anttila secures the birdie on 17 with a fairly long putt. What a statement made by him as he gets back those 4 strokes on Rasmus. Kristian as well. We touched on it in the front 9, but has had some really solid putting performances this season. A few tournaments where he is just lights out, barely missing in some rounds from circle 1 or circle 2. Teemu, good to connect there, but after that unfortunate OB off the tee, 4 was really best case scenario. As we see Rasmus secure the par on 17. Just like that, Niklas gets those 4 strokes back, developed on 14, 15, 16 and 17. They are returned as we move to the final hole.
And what a final hole it is. Hole 18, an absolute bomb of a drive for being a par 3. It's 140 meters, even playing slightly uphill towards the end. OB short doesn't really come into play, but mostly OB on the left and OB on the right, both coming very much into play. And for some of these bigger arms, the OB long is also something to think about. The hole sets up really well for a big distance flex shot, and quite suitable for this hole as it is right on the edge of a lot of players' distance. Although with especially Kristian and Rasmus on the card, it's nowhere near their maximum distance. So gonna see some controlled shots here from Kristian and Rasmus.
Yeah, and you never want to be throwing at absolutely full power, especially in a tournament setting where you may be compromising your control. But as you mentioned, Kristian not compromising anything, able to shape that flex beautifully, pin high, will be in circle 1 to round out his solid comeback in the back 9. Has sneakily been catching a lot of birdies on these sort of separating holes here. We see Niklas pushing that soft flex through. Looks like it was not enough height, but a perfect finish to that, pushing forwards the entire way. And he's right up there at circle's edge as well.
Yep, that's a nice shot from Niklas. And Rasmus is actually going for a fairway driver here. He's going with the T-bird, just once again showcasing that big distance he has. And look at that casual throw. Not even looking like he's throwing the disc very hard. And he has absolutely parked the hole. Wow, what a huge shot in a big situation. And also just showcasing that power. Not many players that can even reach the hole with a fairway driver.
Yeah, super impressive arm speed. In contrast, we see from Teemu here some huge snap, really looking in his form like he was pumping that one out there. And unfortunately, overturning it to the right side, is left with a very long putt to the elevated basket for par if he wants it. I think potentially just laying that one up and accepting a bogey on the final hole. It's not what you want to do, but this would be fairly irresponsible to try and run. He's just going to put this low and settle it.
That's a nice approach, and we have a couple of big putts at the end of this round. Niklas Anttila here to go 9 under on the round. He does not quite get it, and still left with a bit of a comebacker. And Kristian here What a great back nine this would be. And it still is, but I'm sure that missed putt kind of stings.
You feel it a little more when it's at the end of your round or at the beginning. I find missing some putts in the middle, it's all right. You know, you have some good play behind you as well as ahead of you. But right at the end, especially with the big gallery, as the C1 struggles continue for Teemu, almost all of them to the right side. As you mentioned, Elias, if it's a mechanical error with the putt, likely correctable, but those C1 errors have cost him a lot of strokes here today, as we see a tap-in birdie for Rasmus and an incredible performance from him. If you look at that back nine, really only hole 16 giving him some trouble, but otherwise littered with green. What an incredible round and a battle between these lead card competitors here in round 3 moving day.
Yeah, wow, that was some high-level play from the card. Some of the highest we have seen. And you see that on the scoreboard, Niklas Anttila with another just super consistent round, going 8, 9 and 8 under in the first 3, keeping that 6-stroke lead over the hot round of Rasmus Saukkoriipi. Also Kristian Kuoksa from our card having a great round. And finalizing the lead card will be Pyry Joutsen with the second best round of the day at 8 under. After that, it's a tight battle between a lot of Finnish players. We're gonna have a great final round tomorrow for you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and Connor, thank you for doing commentary with me.
Thank you, Elias, and thank you to our viewers. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, or go check out the Patreon if you would like to support this European disc golf coverage. You guys are what make us able to produce this. So we appreciate your time, appreciate your support, and we'll see you in the final round.